Hey there, me again. This little video is probably going to be a little bit longer than usual because we're doing something fairly technical. Not really technical, but it's something that it's going to take a little bit of extra time to explain up front before we get into the meat of it. I got an email from Andrew this morning, and he is asking for creating a Teams meeting or webinar link that can be reused. Hi Stu, our school discovered that we get more parent involvement when we offer online access for our in-school meetings and information sessions and would like to streamline the process. This year our largest online meeting had over 500 attendees. We are currently planning for how to include an online option for every event, I guess for next year. While we know that cameras, microphones and AV mixers are important to deliver a good online experience, that's another story altogether. In the short term, what we'd like help with is how can we create a reusable meeting link that is for our school? Same URL for every event. I think he's actually got this from the fact that we've been running something called Yammer Hotspots on Microsoft Teams for over 2 years now, and we use exactly the same meeting event for every single show. It's a weekly show, and I've done over 75 shows now, and what we're doing is using exactly the same Teams meeting link every single time, and at the top of the meeting it says Yammer Hotspots. It's the name of the actual event that we want. So they're wanting to do something similar for their online events, so that they're always just sharing exactly the same URL. They're not creating new ones for every single event. Okay, next thing he wants is how to configure the meeting with several people who are the owners and hosts. So it's really important that you actually have a few different people from your school who are the owners and hosts of the meeting, because if you're going to reuse this meeting all the time, at least one of those people is going to have to be there for every single meeting in order to run the thing. Make every participant who joins come in with no webcam or microphone access, but allowing hosts, I should say, to grant them that permission if required during the meeting. So the people that come in, they're just attendees. They're not going to be able to interfere with the meeting in any way. They're just going to be viewing and listening to what is being said in the meeting. But maybe if they raise their hand or if they put something in the chat or the Q&A, that you could grant them that permission. So he's wanting that ability. He wants to actually disable the chat function. So he doesn't want people that are attendees. If you've got 500 people and they're all chatting away, there could be all sorts of things that are going through that chat that you don't necessarily want. So he wants to disable that, but he also wants to enable a text-based Q&A option for participants to ask questions. And the other thing that you probably may want to do is turn on moderation for that Q&A, so that you can control what questions are visible to the rest of the audience, and say that, okay, I'm ready to answer this one. Here's the question, here's the answer for it. Any advice you can offer is greatly appreciated. Well, the first bit of advice that I've got is to start thinking about it. You need to prepare this. It's not something that you get straight into straight away. You need to do 3 things. And the things that I recommend you do: gather a list of multiple people who will be involved in the online events. They're going to be the hosts, and the hosts are either presenters, moderators, or helpers. So the presenters are the people who talk on camera, who are delivering the message to the participants, the audience. Moderators might be people who are there to allow people in from the waiting room if you have that turned on. They could be people who check the Q&A questions that are coming in and see whether they're valid questions, whether they're appropriate questions to publish so that everyone else can see what they are and maybe answer those questions. And helpers could be people who also answer those questions, but maybe also keep an eye for people who are attendees raising their hands, that sort of thing, so that you can turn on their camera or turn on their microphone to allow them to participate in that way in your meeting. So find out as many of these people as you can, because they are the ones that you're going to have to invite to the initial meeting. They'll become the hosts of that meeting, and they will be able to control all aspects of a meeting, and if other people are away, then they'll be able to take on that role. Now, the meeting name is an important thing that you'll need to consider. If it's going to be reused for multiple purposes, you need to pick an appropriate name that's going to suit multiple purposes. Maybe it's just the school name or it's a business name is appropriate. But have a discussion first. So say, for example, you're wanting to do multiple of these reusable meetings. Maybe you've got one for the school council. So you might have RPS School Council as the meeting name, and you would use that meeting URL for just the school council meetings. You might have another one which is information sessions for term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4, and they could be just your school name, and that's totally up to you. But you need to think about what are you going to call this meeting that you're wanting to create for reuse purposes. And the third important thing is a dry run. You need to have a dry run of this. Don't do your first meeting with this reusable meeting as a live meeting with people coming in. Book a date and time when the host can test the online meeting settings with some volunteer participants. All right, we're going to go ahead and create this meeting now. So you know the answers to all three of these questions because we're going to be filling that in on the next form. So here I am in Microsoft Outlook. I've jumped ahead, today's the 28th, I've jumped ahead to Monday is when we're going to do the dry run with some people from our school. Let's say we're doing the dry run at 4 p.m. here, and what we need to do is just double click to create a meeting, and we're in here, we've got an appointment, we're ready to do that. The first thing we need to do is say it's going to be a Teams meeting. And when we say it's a Teams meeting, it changes some things on the form. It adds who are the required and optional people for it, and it puts the meeting link information at the bottom. So the meeting that we're going to create is, let's just say it's our school name, so Mortville Public School. And let's just call it Mortville Public School Online. That's the name that we're going to give to this particular meeting. Now, you as the sender are going to automatically be a host, so you don't need to add your name in here, but there's no harm if you do. But what I recommend is that you go and find maybe 5 or 6 other people who are from your school who are going to be those who are hosts. So I mean the participants, the presenters, the helpers, and the moderators. So whoever these people are going to be, you can add as many names as you like of trusted people that will be meeting hosts, and simply add them in there. So presenters, it's really important that they get put in there. So principal, for example, deputy principals are probably sensible people that you'd want to add in for every single one of these repeat meetings. For now, I'm just going to add a couple of people from my team. They'll get this invite and they'll probably say what's going on. They'll be confused, but I'll explain that to them in a sec. So let's add Greg in here, and let's add Joe in here. And Joe's currently got an out of office. I won't worry about that. That's not important. So what we're going to say in here, so typically what you'd say, dry run of reusable meeting link. All right, so you might say that it's only going to those people. You're not inviting others at this point in time. You're not doing anything like that. But what I'm going to say to Greg and Joe is please ignore this. I'm just currently making a video. There you go. And they won't get confused. And that's it. Then what you'll want to do, so this says that it's a Microsoft Teams meeting. It's got the name. This is the name that's going to be on top of the meeting every single time you run it. And these are the people who are going to be my co-hosts for that show. Okay, let's send this. You haven't sent this. Yes, it's next to it. That's fine. Who cares about that? Okay, I'm sending this. That's now sent. They're going to get that invite. I'll probably delete this, cancel this later on, but they've received this for now, and they're probably saying what's going on. Okay, next thing you need to do is go back in and open that particular meeting. And when you open it, I need you to go down to the bottom of the meeting where the links are and click on this little option here that says meeting options, and you'll see it says press control click to follow the link. So hold your control key down, press click, or press the button on your mouse, and with a bit of luck it will launch meeting options in your browser. Any second now. There we go. So Mortville Public School Online, this is the meeting from this date to this date, but really that doesn't matter because I'm going to be reusing this every single time. Okay, who can bypass the lobby? It's up to you whether you want to put people in a lobby. It's probably a good idea, particularly if they're parents, because if you've got a parent meeting set for 7 p.m. and people start coming in at 6:30, they'll end up inside the meeting. You probably want to leave them in a waiting room, and then you can admit them from the participants list in Teams from the waiting room. You can admit them all in one go at 7 o'clock. So I recommend that you come in here and say, people in my organization are the only ones that you want to let in straight away. So anyone who's in the Department of Education in this particular case, anyone who's outside, so the parents coming in with their Gmails and their Yahoos and whatever other addresses that they have, will go into the lobby or the waiting room. Always let callers bypass the lobby, leave that as no. Announce when callers join or leave. I strongly recommend you turn that off, because if you've got 500 people coming into your meeting, you don't want it to go ding, 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 ding in your ear or on the speaker every time someone joins or leaves. Okay, choose co-organizers. This is where you go and grab your hosts, and that's where those two names or the multiple names that you put in your invite will come up. So this is where you can select Greg, and this is where you can select Joe, and they are now co-organizers of the meeting. Who can present? Again, only specific people, only me and co-organizers. So that's who you should say, and that means people who are participants can't take over your meeting. Allow mic for attendees. So attendees are people who are not co-organizers. So you're going to say no to that. You're going to say no to camera. Record automatically, I recommend no, and you can turn on recording if you want to record the meeting just before the meeting starts. Allow meeting chat. So in Andrew's case, he said no, he didn't want chat, and this is where you can set that. So I would say disabled at that point. Allow reactions. You may want to have people clicking the little smiley faces or the clapping thank you sort of thing. So that's up to you if you want to allow participants to use those little emojis to do reactions. Probably not a bad idea. Enable Q&A is yes, and that's the one where Andrew said I'd like to have this Q&A component. Provide cart captions. These are for people who need captions, probably not necessary. Any participant is able to turn on automatic captions for themselves if they want it. And then enable language interpretation. You may or may not need that. It's totally up to you. That could be something. Oh, actually, this is for interpreters. Who's going to do the interpretation? You don't need that. Again, in Microsoft Teams, there is an option for a participant who's watching a Teams meeting to turn on captions and to turn on auto translate from a variety of languages. Okay, that's it. That's the sort of settings that you'll want to apply to this meeting so that you've got good control as you run it. And you hit save at that point of time. That's it. You can put that away. You don't need that anymore. And the key thing that you want now from this thing here is this. Click here to join the meeting. This URL, which is this big long thing that you can see on the screen there, is the thing that you will want to use and reuse as many times as you want to. And what I would recommend that you do is come in here and go copy this hyperlink, and then you can go to some shortening service like Bitly, for example, and you can make a little Bitly, or you can make a tiny URL, whatever you want. So tinyurl.com, and go in here, and you can say this is the link that you've got for your Teams meeting. You can customize your link, which is really nice with tinyurl, and you can say RPS Online is the name of the tinyurl. And then if you make that tiny URL, that Teams meeting will be available at that URL every time. Then when you want to advertise your meeting, you can say, okay, at 7 p.m. on the 16th of February, we're going to have our Term 1 information session, and you can put that in your school newsletter, and you can advertise this link. We're going to be available at tinyurl.com, RPS Online. Everybody keeps that URL, and then when those dates become available, that meeting can run. What does it actually look like when you join the meeting? It's going to say, okay, so it's going to open Teams. It'll let it go into Microsoft Teams. Here it is here, join the meeting. So I'm now a host coming into this meeting. It's going to be this particular public school. It's waiting for other people to join, but you can see straight away that I've got access to Q&A panels, and because I'm a host, I'll be able to do things like moderation. I can turn my camera on in there. There are no conversations. In here, in the settings, I can say in here, post anonymously and allow organizers to moderate attendee conversations. So you'll probably want to turn this on, cannot be turned off once turned on, and save that setting. So that means that automatically you've got questions that are in review, published or dismissed. So there's some really good settings that you'll have, and anyone coming into this meeting will go automatically, if they're external, they'll go automatically into a waiting room. You'll be able to see them from the waiting room through the people session here, people section, and you'll be able to add them from the meeting room. You'll be able to turn your camera on when you're ready, so that when people are come in, you can welcome them to the meeting and so on. You can run the meeting. When you finish the meeting, you can go into this option here which says end meeting, and it will automatically kick out every participant. They won't be left behind in the meeting. So that's another good reason to have different people as hosts. You can end the meeting at any time, but then next time, next term, next week, whenever it is, you can simply go back to your tinyURL RPS online link and go back into this exact same meeting room and use that for the next time. Fully controlled, ready to run. You don't have to worry about redoing all those settings for every single time you create a meeting. Anyway, that's how you go about doing that particular function. I'll just re-show you this. So make sure you've got these things up front, put those meeting options settings in appropriately, and you will have a controllable meeting, reusable, easy to run, and with all the controls that you want. Hope that helped. I will see you in the next video.